All right, let's get this started. Um, so you saw the recent announcement. You know the game might be down through the weekend. That was kind of sudden for me to hear too, because it wasn't like there's anything that was said to the staff before that. But I figured we take the time to go over some things because the officers have collectively been receiving a number of suggestions. Some of them are complaints. Some of them are complaints. Some of them are criticism. Things like that. So I wanted to make sure that we address them in some way, and we were kind of trying to figure out, do we do this outside of event time or during? But here we are. So we're gonna do is we're gonna go through like 5 or 6 main points, and then we'll get input from people on things. I'll take some notes, and then at the end, or if there's a relevant suggestion in a particular topic, just throw it out so that we can roll it into the chat. All right. So the first thing is, we just started Dynamis, but obviously Dynamis has been pretty successful for us. The full clear best stock was pretty huge for us.
What happened?
I'm holding this down. It shouldn't cut out at all. Am I cutting out for everybody?
Yeah,
You cut out a little bit.
That's so fucking weird. Okay. So Dynamis, very successful, and I think it's been making a lot of people really eager to go back and to get more gear. It certainly has brought up the idea of sponsorship for a number of people. So I think we need to address that. So my thoughts on this, as part of a larger idea, was to charge a certain number of points for people to sponsor each run. And I'll show you a little bit. I have a chart up that I did as an example, but essentially it would cost about 7 points. And of course, Dynamis itself gives you, the 3. So you have to figure out where to make up the other 4 during the week. That's usually one other event night, right? So it's pretty simple. But the idea behind that was to make sure that the sponsor is someone who is actively participating in the link shell. Because if they're running out of points in sponsoring, they're probably not going to other events other than Dynamis, which, we wouldn't want to build a relic for someone who's not going to then sort of reinvest it back into the link shell in some way. We don't have any restrictions on people creating relics. If someone wants to sponsor, they can throw their hat in the ring, and I did say that you could do that since I posted my thing on Monday, but I haven't actually gotten any DMs about it. So essentially what I want to do in this point is to talk about an idea that you guys think would be fair for actually selecting a long-term sponsor.
Is this a
Did
question?
you cut out again?
I'm watching my thing light up. It's not telling me I'm cutting out, so.
The last word you said was sponsor. So.
Okay. What I want to do is I want to talk to you guys. I see why it's cutting out. Okay, hold on. All right, we're just using voice activity because I realized my push to talk button is duplicated as another function. Okay, the main thing I want to talk about in this topic is a system that we can create that most people would be happy with to select a long-term sponsor. So I'm willing to hear ideas on this one.
I'll start off, and just to expand on what Grace said, we have been talking pretty extensively in officer chat about this, and it has not been one-sided. And I always make it a point personally to bring up different perspectives that maybe some people aren't thinking about. So I think the main point is we want it to be fair to people, but at the same time, completing a relic is really the main point of the currency in Dynamis. And completing a relic is a major task. And for that to happen, we really need to focus our efforts into one person until that's completed. Does anyone disagree with that?
I mean, if they're gonna constantly sponsor it, I don't.
Well, it's either somebody sponsors and gets all the currency they need until the relic is completed, or we split it up to a point where it could take many more months or possibly over a year for a couple of people to complete a relic. The whole time we're waiting for a relic to be introduced into the link shell.
So wait, you're saying instead of currency being sold, we pick someone, you're getting a relic. Currency goes towards that.
No, that person would be sponsored.
They still have to buy the hourglass.
this isn't a handout to that person.
Not by any means.
This person is going to have the money for the long term to complete this. So this has to be someone, not someone who has a couple million and they're like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I don't know if I want to complete it or not. This is going to be someone who's going to be dedicated to doing it from the very beginning.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Yeah, and what was unclear to me at first and may help is if you're sponsoring, it's you're not like sponsoring to make money off of Dynamis. It's definitely going back into it.
Right. No
Yeah.
one is going to make money off of it.
It's incredibly unlikely that people will make money off of Dynamis runs. The idea is like well, perfect example. Building a relic that only needed 4 bind bills in stage and whatever it is, like I think it's like 8 for stage 2 or 12 for stage 2 or whatever. And we got all 12 of them basically on last Saturday at Bastock Run. The next time we do Bastock, you absolutely can fund Bastock, but the sponsor is going to be trying to sell or trade those 100s for other 100s that they need. So it's always going to be like a break-even kind of thing. There's no like, oh, I put $1 million into Dynamis and I sold 10 100s and I'm up. Now I can pay for 10 more runs. That may be the case because at the end you kind of only have to focus on one currency and that can be tough. But the likelihood of someone making money is incredibly low. So don't look at it like that because it's not what people are going to be doing.
Yeah, so that's something that I was going to say. I mean, there's two sides to it, right? There's the side of obviously having one relic fully complete is better for the shell than having 2 relics 50% complete, right? And so on. So I agree to a point of having, one sponsor at a time. That being said, as you get to the later stages and you only need specific currency, that one sponsor may not want to sponsor all of the Sandoria runs, right? Maybe they want to sponsor from some of the other cities. And if at that point someone else is interested in sponsoring some of those other cities, then I think we should be open to that.
And also, as it goes along, this one person wouldn't be sponsoring every single run. There will be runs sponsored by the Link Shell still. And the idea was brought up to at least keep currency in the bank for the last upgrade, since there is a certain amount of currency that's refunded when you get your relic. And that refunded currency would go back into the Link Shell. So just that final push to get that person the relic, and then that Link Shell would go back into the Link Shell bank.
Yeah, so we want to keep 30 of each. We basically want to get up to as close to 30 of each as we can for the refund portion, if possible, obviously. This way, the person doesn't have left over and just sells the extra 30 to make money back, and then, we want to make sure that we just have it so to accelerate that process, because that 30 can be just traded out to each person who's at the end stage, essentially, because we know we'll get it back. But the thing is, we still need to come up with a system for selecting a sponsor. Now, there are a number of people here who probably are prepared for sponsorship in terms of the money that they have on hand. And if there's people that are that rich, we will consider you too, but we want to come up with a system before we know who even those people are, so that it's completely unbiased. Or as unbiased as we can get, because I'm sure you people know who the rich people are in the Link Shell anyway.
And Gray, have you had anyone else come forward other than
No.
Saj?
Nope, and Zajin mentioned it in passing. He said that he would be willing to do it, but he would need to fundraise first. So, the thought is, well, we're still building up the bank. We wouldn't start this till maybe December, and December is going to be a light month because I'm sure we're going to have event cancellations for the holidays. So this is realistically more like December, January, but I want the system to be in place ahead of time. So how do you guys think we should select this person? Do you need me to throw out some basic ideas to get you guys started on the conversation?
When you say select the person, you mean if there were multiple people, you would have
Correct.
to choose one of the
Yes.
multiple?
How do we select the one person?
I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is obviously most useful relic.
Okay. Listen, I'm writing all the ideas down.
I mean, points.
Okay. Points.
Yeah, I mean, obviously it needs to be someone who has enough points and attends enough events, but that's sort of intrinsically already built into the system.
Yeah, I mean, we could even come up with minimums. In order to start sponsoring, this person needs to have 20 million gil in hand and 75 points. If we want to.
And I mean,
The point
the
is fine.
points. Yeah, the points aren't a big deal. If that person isn't sponsoring every single run, they're not going to go negative. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and that caveat in there, by the way, just to clarify, is in there because people may not want to sponsor Northland's runs just because they're so scattered and they're fairly terrible in terms of drops, money drops, compared to the cities. You know.
Yeah, Northlands can be used to build the Link Shell Bank currency for that final stage if we want to do it that way.
But the sponsor's more than welcome to sponsor that if they wish to. We're just, making sure that we're not locking them into every single run mandatory. But there will be the vast majority of runs. Because the cities will be the majority of runs, I would imagine. Alright, so most useful relic first, points priority, what else?
If they're tied out, the most easy way to do it would just be a random. I mean, that's completely unbought.
Sure. I mean, in terms of like selection, do we there's other ideas too, other than just like kind of the currency that we currently have on hand in terms of points priority and this other idea of best relic first, because I think best relic first is an idea, but we do know which relics are the best, and if people decide to build those, then other people may never get a relic that is slightly less useful. But systems in terms of like when we were talking about points, like do we do divine choice? Do we do leadership or loot council? Do we put it out to a vote for the entire Ling Shell? Like essentially, we're talking about how do we elect the person, like through and through. Like how can we make it democratic in some way that is fair to people, or do we not want it to be democratic at all?
I mean, I like the vote idea. Like, just get a list and do a vote for the whole.
Okay, so like if we had 3 people that want to start December 1st, just put them all up to a vote?
Yep.
Okay.
And if we do that, those people need to be totally transparent with amount of money they have on hand, what relic they're completing, so on and so forth.
Yeah, and the voting would certainly include at least the relic they're building, and I would do the money check, and that would stay private if we, if that's cool. Because I don't think everyone wants everybody to know how much money they have on hand necessarily.
And then Fal wants me to make an APOC, right?
Hey, I am all in line with your Amano. That's fine with me. If you make that decision.
How long, based on, let's assume Bastock was like an average, how long will it take for someone to make a relic?
I have an answer to that. At an average of 500 currency per run, it will take 6 months and 2 weeks.
Fuck.
Jeez Louise.
That's running Dynamis 6 times a month rather than 8, which a lot of other people do.
And that's why we need to focus efforts and not just let it just be willy-nilly, whoever wants to throw in their hat, whatever.
Yeah, and that's not to say that in the process between now and the 6 months of finishing a relic, we don't expand the link shell to a certain degree where we can actually do 2 city runs in a night. There are the link shells that do that, and that does double up on your currency quite a bit. So the sponsor would then be responsible for covering both those runs, but would obviously only be able to attend one of them, but they would get the currency for both. So there are, other ideas that could happen between now and then. They're not guarantees.
At the end of the day, not everyone is going to be 100% happy with what's chosen. Let's just get to that endpoint and realize that. But we need to think about what is best for the link shell as a whole. And it's not going to be constructive to the link shell if we just split everything every single week and people just sell for gil. That's not going to promote our link shell.
If we're not being sponsored, after we build up the balance of 30, it's still going back into the link shell bank, correct?
You're saying if we have no sponsors?
Mm-hmm. Or they're not sponsoring that particular run.
Right, so there will be some runs that we specifically want the link shell to run without a sponsor, if that's what you're saying. And so the link shell will always keep a minimum float of both Dynamis currency and Gil. I don't know if that answered the question that you were asking.
Kind of. I'll
And-
think of how to reword it.
And also keep in mind, the link shell's been doing Sky for a while, and we don't split money drops in Sky either. Money drops get sold and put in the link shell bank. So it's not like there's any kind of profit sharing involved in any other events that the link shell's done.
Right, and that those items are available to you guys at a discount, which also is not hard coded into the rules on purpose. It's kind of been 10% basically, but we can certainly make that a much deeper discount, 20%, 25%, if people feel like they want to get more out of that, which is kind of a secondary conversation, but I felt that it was probably going to come up at some point.
You bastard.
Just an idea. Because I know people want to crank out those +1 things, so it's been brought up. Are we okay if we have 2 or 3 people December, sometime halfway through November, that we can put up a vote and let that run for 10, 14 days? Are people comfortable with that? If you know the relic they're building and you get to vote on them,
Yes, I'm fine with that.
you'd be fine with that?
Yeah, I am.
Are there major objections to that idea?
I mean, if someone wants to get into that vote too, they can just sign up. That sounds pretty fair.
Okay. And you guys are comfortable with the leaders coming up with what the minimum requirements are for that to be a part of that vote, or do you want to have some input in that as well?
I feel like it should be someone who's dedicated in trying to get the relic.
So me?
No, not you.
God.
Anyway,
How many minimum of points do you want them to have? Throw out a number. I mean,
What's the maximum points that someone has right now? I feel like it's about 50.
it's 50 or 60. Yeah.
Right, so we can't obviously put it too high. We've got, maybe another month's worth of events before we start seriously looking at this. You want to make sure that it's low enough that someone can actually get that number of points by the time we get to voting.
I think if we set it at 50 by that time, at least half of the link shell has 50 points by that time. Except for, the newer people.
Yep, we could also set it at a number like 40 or 42, because that's one month's worth of Dynamis runs. 6 times, 7 points is at 42. We could just round it down. Or 45 points. I mean, it could be anything. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's kind of arbitrary. We're just saying, how are we going to get the list down to that one person who's going to be eligible?
How many points are we getting per run?
3.
Right.
It's a point per hour, and our event time is 3 hours.
Yeah. Just, basically, it's just an entry. It's just an entry point. We're not charging them that amount of points up front. We just want to make sure they have, that they've put in enough time. What do we think is a respectable amount of time? 50 points is 50 hours of link shell time. Are we comfortable with letting someone become eligible to build a relic if they have X amount of money, which we'll talk about next, and X amount of points, which we're talking about now? That's all it is. That's the only question I'm asking. If you guys don't care about the requirements and anyone can just throw their hat in the ring, that's fine too. They will need to have money, though. There's kind of no way around that one.
Now, as far as point totals and spending the points to sponsor, are second characters brought into this equation?
Secondary characters. I would say that secondary characters. That's a good question.
Because I have max points on 2 characters combined for a total.
No, it'd be a single character.
No, that's kind of an easy one, Caesar. We still implement the same rule, that is, you need to be able to equip the item. So therefore, if you have White Mage on one and the other one is like...
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, if I were to go on for a relic on Zissa, would I be able to use the points on Enri to sponsor the run?
Yeah, that is true.
I would say no.
I would say no shared point pool
No.
because we're talking about one person.
Yeah.
But if you have two different characters and you have certain jobs on one and certain jobs on another, it really doesn't matter which character is getting the relic because you're bringing that character to Link Shell events and it's going to be used.
Yeah, if you're telling me you want
It's going to come down to.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's really going to come down to the guild. Do you have the guild to do it on one of your characters?
Yeah, if you tell me you want to build an Annihilator for Enryu, I'll be like, okay. It doesn't matter one way or the other, but you're not going to look at your points as a combined total. You know, they're individually looked at.
I got here a little late, but
Okay.
I wanted to ask. So what exactly is the usage of points doing? Is it giving us an extra roll, or is it actually literally just getting us the item?
No, we're not talking about what that is yet. What we're saying is just sponsors will be charged a certain number of points every time they sponsor. Their points are gonna be reduced. Essentially, you're getting a relic, but you're also losing your tiebreaker every time you sponsor. You're gonna You're losing points.
Okay.
And this will be more significant because Gray is also getting together a list of things that we could spend points on. So our points aren't going to just be idle in case of tiebreakers. They're going to be used as currency within the Link Shell to give you something.
Correct.
We can make it 4 points, 2/3 of a day, pretty much. Would that be too high?
Well, right now my proposal has it at 7, just so that it consumes at least the Dynamis run and then 4 more hours of Link Shell time. The total amount of event time we do in a week is 9 hours. So 9 points is the max you can earn. So if we're charging them 7, it seems pretty fucking significant. It could be 6, if that's what you guys want it to be. We'll talk about that next. But the idea is we just want them to be treading water a little bit, but we want them also to have a stockpile of points to prove that they've already put in all that hours into the Link Shell. Okay, so we'll come up with the amount of points. How much, Gil?
1 gajillion. No, I don't know.
1 billion Gil.
What was the number?
With I haven't done actual math with currency conversion on the server. Would you say it's about 10K
You
per?
could probably take some college courses for that, Shika.
Let's say, how much would it cost just to get to the last stage, or right before you complete it?
Well, you said it would take 6.5 months, give or take, to get a full relic, right? So
Yeah.
that's how many runs? That's times.
About 36 to 39 runs is the kind of where you're at.
And it's a million gil a run, so you need around.
Yeah.
So would we say it's fair to have like 15 mil on hand to even start?
Oh, sorry.
15 to 20 is a start. Obviously, you have to be making money as you're building your relic and doing your normal farming shit. But there's also the potential to be recycling money into other money, and some of the currencies might be worth more or less than others. Bind bills tend to be worth a little less on retail. I don't know what the market looks like here because people don't tend to shout, "I'm selling my Ordell bronze pieces for 8,000 a piece." So there's no established market for them. So some people might be selling them for 4K a pop. Some people might be selling them for 6K a pop. I have no idea. I could ask Wrath. He would be able to tell me because his Link Shell does buy and split. But at the moment, I have no idea. But reasonably, you want to have at least half to 2/3 of the money sort of upfront, and relics.
So you're thinking average wise 500 a run? Because I'm thinking it's going to be higher than that. Just based on
Yes, that's the average. Yes, I did a conservative average is what I did. I did 500 straight, and if you need 18,000 pieces at 500, that's 36 runs. You're talking about 6 months because we're doing 6 runs a month.
Yeah. It could
be more.
TH4 as well later on.
Yeah, we could be getting 900 a run, and we're done with the relic in 4.5. I don't know.
Right. It just sounds like from SD, if you do a full clear of cities, they average 8 or 900 is what it sounds like.
That's fine, and our Sandy run was 300, so it was really good.
Right.
So
You definitely didn't do anywhere near a full clear though.
No, we did about 2/3. Yeah. So yeah, I think 15 to 20 million is a starting estimate, but I could certainly understand it being higher than that. So.
Where did the 1 million average? Oh, sorry. Where would the 1 million price tag come from per?
What do you mean?
Selva missed a lot of the conversation. So we're talking about
like 30 minutes of it, probably. Yeah.
Dynamis cost $1 million gil to go in.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So can we take that as a price point for the amount of currency we're getting and just divide it with it?
No.
You're missing the point.
No, we're not splitting currency at all between members. We're talking about sponsors.
No, I'm talking about the price per currency. That's what I'm saying.
No, you can't really look at it like that because currency would be worth nothing. People that sell split want to make their money back, so they always overprice currency. In resale. That's just how it goes. You don't get your currency wholesale. Never happens. If SD's saying they get 10 100s a run and they spend $1 million, do the math. Every piece is going to be worth like what? 1K, 10K, whatever it is. It's not going to sell for that. It's going to sell for more than that.
Especially since everybody's doing it right now.
I mean, 20 mil is over half of the cost up front. That sounds completely.
Yeah, and I don't even think it needs to be that high, especially seeing how we only have one name in the hat so far. Now, if there are more contenders later on, we might look at it again. But right now, we need to decide who's going to be the first one to do the push toward.
Well, we don't. We don't need to decide who's going to be the person. We're trying to decide what the sort of rubric is for allowing people to throw their name in the hat. We will have that vote in a couple of weeks. And what I'm hearing right now is people are okay with the democratic vote. They want to know which relic people are building. And then leaders will select a certain amount of points, and about 15 to 20 mil does sound about good. Any objections to any of those numbers that I just said?
Right, and that's not just necessarily in like liquid cash floating around, right? That's like cash and asset.
And asset, yeah, sure. Now, if you're liquidating your speed belt to get a relic, that's your business. It's your business. I'm not saying you shouldn't, but
goodbye hobby +1.
That's 6 Dynamis runs in your pocket, right? So you got to think about it.
Wait, so you're willing to take in items for runs? Is this right?
No.
No. What I'm saying is if you own a high-priced item and you sell that to pay for your relic, that's fine. Just you're also going to probably gimp yourself. So, the problem with relic is you kind of want to get to the end of the race with all of your limbs intact.
We having a bunch of sponsors running around naked with it's gonna be great.
Yeah, I got this toothpick Greikaton. It's amazing, and a Wallara turban.
We're talking about right now. Named Matt.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about that. Okay. All right, so that's what that will be. I will write all this shit into the rules as we go forward. Point number 2, ways to spend points. So if you go into the pinned messages, okay, the most recent one, point 2, does have a link to a Google spreadsheet, which is sort of an example of my idea for letting people spend points. These numbers are arbitrary at this point. They're just guesstimates, but please open that up and take a look at it. The idea is that things have a fixed point cost, and it can be separated out by events. I didn't come up with any sort of Sky-related ones because I didn't think there were any. But certainly maybe we could do something like spend 3 points and you're able to also buy that drop, for 50% discount on the spot or something. I don't know.
Wait, is tier-based?
What do you mean by tier-based?
Once I get the perk, I'm done. I can buy one.
No, you could buy these as many times as you want.
You have the point.
So I will keep spending 3 points to buy
The points, yes. The points will be currency for purchasing.
It's like a silent auction house where you just spend points. If someone wants to use more points, they spend more points on it, right?
Well, look at it like this, okay? So everyone's got wish lists in for all the events right now that we're doing, okay? Let's say, Arnis, you're not happy with the way, your wish list looks like because maybe some other people have joined the link shell and they've jumped ahead of you in the list. That is a point we're going to talk about next. But based on this system, you could say, well, you know what? Fuck it. I want to spend 50 points right now, and I want to just submit an entirely new wish list for Sky. Your entire wish list gets unlocked, all 5 tiers, and you can just submit an entirely new wish list of 15 items. It still has to follow all the rules of the old wish list, right? Tier 1 and 2 you can wear, tier 3, 4, and 5 can be anything. But you can submit a whole new wish list. And you could just send me a DM and say, I'm spending 50 points to do that. And I will say, okay, you purchased the perk, that's what's happening. So that's the idea behind this chart, is you send me a DM and say, I want to spend this points and I want to do this right now. And then we do it.
Okay, I gotcha.
Now, there are some shortcomings to that particular perk, because not just you, but anyone who has the points to do that can also do that after you do that.
Correct, but it will not be announced. We're not going to say, Arnis is purchasing a new Sky wish list. Like,
Everybody panic.
yeah, it won't happen that way. It will be...
What's the divine law?
I'm just saying, if you end up switching things around, and let's say we have a lot of people on Biaka's list for high date, and someone submits that, and they put high date as their number 1, that's not going to stop anyone else from submitting theirs and also changing their high date to number 1.
Right.
And then it's going to be up to point.
Right. So points will have more than just a tiebreaker value, but you're going to trade that priority in tiebreaker, which is obviously a tertiary consideration, for this ability to manipulate your wish list in some interesting way.
Without the other people knowing about it.
Right.
So they, okay, got
Yes. It's all
The
incognito.
The lists are all going to still be public for everyone to see.
This-
Right? Okay.
So the idea behind this was to meet people halfway, I think. And I know Kez and Zajan and I, way back in the day, we went back and forth about this. But there's the wish list where you can actually see everyone's tier 1 through 5, 1, 2, 3 slots. And then there's the standings where you can just look at it and get quick at a glance who wins the next one. What I would do if we implemented something like this is to hide the wish list itself. So even if Arnis moves up to the top of the list for an item, you don't know that he necessarily put it at 1-1. You don't know where he put it. You just know it's higher than some other person's on the list. And I think that will stop people from counter purchasing to override wish lists, because that's kind of silly. But people are willing to do that if they want to try it. I would limit these purchases probably to once a month for each one, and I would keep track of it in the DM by pinning it like I've been doing for people's wish list. So there would be some additional small stuff to it. I think that's fair if we hide the wish list part of it so that people don't have that level of transparency, but you can still see the standings list. Okay? Does that sound all right? And I think that meets a couple people halfway here who sent me that sort of problem they have with the wish list thing. And you know who you are. There's a bunch of you.
What?
so far to you. Shut up.
I don't mind saying that. I personally brought up to Gray that the wish list can be manipulated and consider hiding that portion.
Yeah.
I'm all about transparency and everything. I have a high level of integrity, but I think that should.
Yeah, because it is easy to manipulate the wish list, and the order in which you submit your stuff can actually work against you. So the alternative is I try to enter everyone's wish list at the same time, but I don't get them all at the same time, and I don't get them all by a deadline either. Sometimes they trickle in, or people leave their wish list bank on purpose so that they can fill it in later. So I would like to hide the wish list at least to solve that problem.
I think that makes sense.
I trust every single.
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes a lot of sense just because, if we're going to let you buy these perks, you shouldn't be just looking at everybody else's. You have to take, it's a gamble. We want it to be more of a gamble than just a straight up, I'm going to just beat this person in every single item.
I mean, even before the perks, it was just so easy to game the system if you knew what everyone's tiers were. So, it made sense even before.
Okay. All right. Now, looking at the chart itself, do people have suggestions for either the point amounts, for the types of perks you want to see on the list? Are there Sky ones that you want to see? Are there additional Dynamis ones that you want to see? Anything like that? Are the point totals too high? Talk to me here.
So for the ground wish list, that's gotta be on a separate point, or is it the one?
We'll talk about that. That'll come up later.
Okay.
We're gonna justify why that is that way.
If we're gonna have points affect purchasing, say for instance, Sky Guild drops to save money, I don't think it should be cheap. I think it should be at D points that you're actually converting into Gil.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. So let's say a D got drops off of Kieran. And we say we want to let people buy that on the spot with a certain amount of points. Now, obviously, the amount of points that they have at the moment will probably determine their priority, but then they're going to spend down. And how much should that cost them? Let's say we set the discount. Zajan, you know the market better. What do you think is a good discount on items like that for trade for points? You know, because we want the bank to make money, but we also want to give people a shot at discounts.
Just like a discount percentage wise?
Yeah.
Or...
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it depends on how many points we're putting in. Is what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
Like I was saying that for every 100K of an item, you should spend so many points. We just have to figure out like how many points that would be.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So like for a DA you could spend. You could get the whole item for free, is what I'm thinking, but you'd spend way more points.
Yeah, I like
not many people are gonna have that many.
Wait, no, but I mean,
Like
are
at the start,
we using
maybe?
those items to actually fund a lot of the runs too? Like, I don't know if that's pretty
Well,
fair.
if we're sponsoring, it's not. We're gonna make sure we keep the cash in the bank fine. Sorry, I'm playing
Yeah.
Call of Duty. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so number one, as we said before, we will always keep a minimum float on the bank so that we don't end up dry and unable to, run something if we need to. Number two, I like the idea of converting, X number of points equals X number of gil. Because a D ingot 1 week might be worth more or less than a D ingot the next week, and we don't want to keep adjusting how many points does it cost to get a D ingot, right? Like you instead just want to say
We want to
X
function.
number of points per gil, and and then that fluctuates with the market just as gil fluctuates with the market, right?
Like a D ingot
Well,
costs like 20 points or something, kind of crazy. If we
Well,
do
some of
like
it-
points per 100K or something. Sorry, Susan.
Well, some of these items aren't necessarily on the market, so you'll have to come up with your own price for what they are.
Well, the Link Shell has been selling things that haven't been purchased by
Yeah.
Link Shell members to
Yeah,
other
the
people
history.
outside of Link.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about venomous claws, D ingots. We're talking about shining claws, things that do have a market. Obviously, the stuff that for cursed synth will stay under those rules, which is we give it out to you, to the synth. But I don't want to think about it in crazy numbers, like 20 points for D ingot sounds like a lot, because we still have to remember that a point is an hour. So 20 hours of work is a lot to get a D ingot, I think.
And also, I don't think we should apply points to items. We should do what Zajan considered as far as like a point to gil conversion. And then that could stay the same.
If you assume, like, what's an average amount you can make in an hour farming, and base it off of that.
About
It
4 hours
depends on who's farming.
Yeah.
No, obviously.
See, that would be like 50K an hour if we're doing 2 points per 100K.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah, I
is
think
kind of
that's
low, but you're just doing link shell stuff. Like, I enjoy doing
Yeah.
whatever.
And as you're earning the points for Link Shell, you're also helping the Link Shell make money as well as getting other people gear. So I think that also needs to be factored. Like, I think if we did 1 point per 100K, it makes sense. Like maybe it doesn't sound like a lot, but putting in 10 hours plus you had to be there to kill Kieran, plus you had to play 10 other hours in order to get that, like, to be able to purchase that item for free. I think that makes sense.
And keep in mind too, some people will only care about gil. They'll only want to convert their points to gil. Other people will hold on to it in case they want to reshuffle their wish list. And then the people or person who is going to be sponsoring Dynamis is probably putting all their points in.
Yeah, I was just thinking about that. So if 7 points to sponsor a Dynamis and 7 points is basically a million gil, let's say, then having 1 point for 100K sounds about right too.
Yeah, but that person...
You want it to be more. You want it to cost more, or else everyone is going to just convert all of their points to gil and then start purchasing Dynamis runs, right? Like, you want it to cost more than sponsoring.
I think they're two different events, and it's hard to compare them because Dynamis is a 1 mil input that you're going to technically make far more than 1 mil back on. It's just that it's
Yeah.
not a liquid asset necessarily. You know, it has an intrinsic value, whereas something like a D ingot, Val's going to buy however many D ingots he can get, you know, as long as he doesn't spend gil. But he's also going to be out of points, you know, like pretty fast. You know, if he buys the next 5, he's going to be out. If they're 10 points apiece, he's out of points. That's it. So he made 5 mil, but now he has to spend another like 10 hours to purchase another one.
I also think that the points should be pretty steep to gil conversion. Otherwise, the same person would be able to just buy things every single week if they're attending all the events.
Okay. Well, what do we want it to be? Do we want to look at it in units of 100K, or do we want to look at it in units of a mil and divide down? 50K.
50 for 1 point.
50 for 1 point.
Yeah, that's
Seems reasonable. Yeah.
Let's make it
So if someone is buying something,
like 20 points is
right,
Yeah.
and that's, hey, but it's worth a lot, right?
Yeah,
We don't want the same person who's able to pick that up every single sky event.
right.
And if no one wants it, they can still purchase those in the bank. You know?
Absolutely. They can still get the normal discount with their own gil if they want that.
That's what I was about to ask. So, in theory, if I didn't want to spend points, I could still buy a dang it for 10% off anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
And these are only on items that there's not a, like, are you still going by the rule where if someone needs that item for a curse of sin, they're
Correct.
still going to get it, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, these
Those
are the.
stuff for-
Yeah, we're talking about V claws, D ingots, shining claws, you know,
Because
things like that.
I'm totally stacking interviews points for all those Siren Tears.
No, we'll get Siren Tears eventually. Okay, so 50K for 1 point in terms of purchasing an item.
I was just gonna
Well,
point.
it is. Go ahead.
Sorry, go. Yeah, okay, thank you. So I was gonna point out though, since the points right now, like the cost is 50K per use, right, and all that stuff. But the other side of the coin is that the only real use that points is tiebreaker. So I don't see how the benefit of actually hoarding all your points, besides just using them for dynamis runs and all this sort of stuff.
That's why we're introducing this.
Yeah, and let me make something very clear, because there is also a long-term thing that has to be considered. When we start doing ground, now let me insert a comma there. You guys are used to getting gear really quick because we're doing Sky, we're doing Dynamis, we're doing instance-based content. We fight when we want to fight. When it comes to ground, our wish lists are going to be sitting the way they look like for a long time in some cases. So if me and Sheikah both put Defending Ring as number 1, tier 1, slot 1, him and I are going to duke it out. I'm going to want to hold on to my points in the event that fucking D ring drops and he misses an event, because I want to be at least 1 point higher than him to not have to random it. That's a real situation that will happen with people who want riddles, D rings, adamant hauberks, all that shit. You can ask any of the old school players in here. It will take us months to get those pieces of gear. Just one of them. So there are people who are going to hoard their points. They're not in for the guild. They're not in for anything but the priority. So the priority has value, but I think it has less of a value because we're doing instance-based content. And when we get to ground, you're going to see how much more important that is. To have that priority all the way. You want to lock up an item completely.
I have one question about that though, because
Sure.
we are separating the point pools,
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
that was met.
Yes.
How does that affect that?
Well, we're going to probably let people spend points out of either pool for certain things, but the priorities will be kept separately. Because you're still getting those hours are still counted for link shell time.
You're still contributing to the link shell doing ground. However, we understand that there are a lot of people here who have 9 to 5 jobs Monday through Friday, and they're not going to be able to camp H&Ms all day long. And that's why it was brought up for a second.
I'm just taking notes on the chart over here.
So how are we wanting to do items that drop on the spot? We're going to assume that people there are obviously going to have first go at it.
I would
And
think so, yeah.
What if multiple people want to go for it? Like they say, I'll put in my 20 points or whatever the item's worth.
Whoever has the highest amount of points at that time gets priority, but then you're going to spend down below. So if someone has 32 and someone has 30 and they both want it, the person with 32 wins, but they drop down to 12 points if they spend 20.
Okay.
You know, that's
Yeah.
another angle that I hadn't even thought of. For those of us who can't be on during the daytime and camping, you're saying that the people who are camping are actually working for the person who has the highest points.
What do you mean?
I mean, if you can't participate in the event where the item drops, you still have a say. You still have a hat in for that particular drop. I don't know if I'm saying this right.
Well, if you're not there when the mob dies, you're not going to get a chance at rolling on it.
Yeah.
Right. That's what I'm saying. Now, I know there are other items that are not Rare X, but we're saying that you have to actually be there at the time of death when the item drops for you to have a chance of getting it, just like any.
You mean if you want to buy it with points?
Well, it's just the buying.
Right.
That's what I was referring to. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you have to be on the spot. It won't even go to the bank. It'll go directly to your inventory, and we charge you the amount of points that it would cost based on the market value. So a Dragon Talon drops at Fafnir, and you say, I need Dragon Talons, they're 100k, you're going to get however many points we decide for Fafnir, minus 2, and that's how it's going to look on your attendance sheet. So, you know, if we were giving 3 points for Fafnir, instead of getting 3 points, you're going to get 1, because you're going to be purchasing out the Dragon Talon. So this will count for sky items, and it'll also count for ground items, since we're doing a full market value kind of thing.
Wolf has a good point too, and that's why I said that that cash items should cost a little bit more, because we will have people who eventually just hoard points and have a ton of points, and then they'll cash out all at once.
Sure, they're only going to cash out for Gil. That's the thing; they're not going to be able to cash out for gear, and it's going to be a one-time thing. You know, like well, it's obvious you're going to spend over time, but you're also going to keep losing priority. You can't necessarily win a whole bunch of items straight up front, you know, because they're going to be a fixed cost. So if a behemoth hide, which is 500k, you know, if we don't have to keep one for a synth, and we're going to sell it, it's going to cost you X amount of points. You're going to keep reducing your points by a larger amount than you could probably get in 2-3 weeks in Link Shell time, because 1 point to 50k is a lot. That's high. Like a DN God worth 20 points, that's 2 weeks worth of events to make 1,000,000 gil. I want you to think about that in perspective.
Yeah, and
It's a lot.
Also think of the current situation that we have, where points like tiebreakers are made and broken by like 2 or 3 points right now. So if you're spending 20, you're out of the running for a while.
Yes. Yeah, you are.
One question. So, with this equivalent to 50k, what you're saying right now is, since, like, let's say a DN it costs $1 million, I gotta fork out the points in order to actually be able to outright buy out that.
Yeah.
If you want it
You're
for
fine.
free, but if you only want to say cash out enough points to buy half the Diengot and then throw the other half in Gil, I think you have the option to do that also.
We could do that.
No, this is not necessarily. Okay, I'll just straight out ask it. Can we do the same for gear? Like, what is
No.
the worth of the riddle then?
Nope.
Or okay, that's why I
Nope.
wanted to clear that out. Okay, perfect.
Nope.
I just wanted to know that. Good.
Just Gil,
Good.
just
Thank
Gil
you.
drop.
Rare EX will always be governed by the wish list.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, in my situation, I'll just say straight up, my ground #1 item is Herald's Gators, which can be traded. So if they happen to be on a run where I can't make some at work, and if I would have been #1 if I was there, does the priority go to the person who was there that had it on one of their lists?
Yes, we've doing that with the Kiranzo Sode too, because Demo already lost his Kiranzo Sode.
Right. Okay. Yeah. You're
Yep.
right. Okay. I forgot about that.
And I
Yep.
think that's fair. If you can't attend an event, you don't have a running for the.
Right. Now, when we do get to a point where all the Herald Gators are off of everyone's wish list, there are no more established Herald Gators, we will decide what we want. Well, at that point, people can buy them out. They become a purchasable item, or they will be sold by the Link Shell Bank.
I like that idea.
Or someone may spend points to reshuffle their wish list and put Herald Gator on it at some point. And then we have, one for someone who needs it. So this is all like this. I know we're going through this point by point, but it's all sort of interconnected because all these rules changes have to happen at the same time for them to make sense. Okay. All right.
Like, I'm
All right. So we've got democratic vote for sponsor. Know what relic they're building. Leaders will decide minimum points and gil on hand. Bank minimum, we want to keep 30 of each currency, ideally, and about I would say I estimated about 10 mil in the bank minimum is what we kind of want to keep in there. And then we have this idea for 50K. 1 point is equivalent to 50K on a purchase, and that's going to be for any purchasable items, and that will probably apply to both sky and also to ground as well. Any suggestions of perks you want to put on the list? Does anyone have a problem with the actual point amounts? Do you have a problem with a perk that's not you think would be cool to have on here? Anything like that? It is linked in the pins if you are not looking at it.
1 point to bring out Kanye as a potion for us.
No one can help Kanye no matter how many points you spend.
5 points so Selva doesn't run away and says cheers.
So if I roll out this list the way it is right now, people are going to be content with that. I'm not hearing a yes or a no. So
I think every point expenditure should be sacrificial in a way. I don't think any of them should be easy to where someone's like, yeah, I'll just throw the points in because they're not worth anything.
yeah, no, none of them are easy. None of them are easy.
I don't want a point system where you don't lose anything or gain anything. You don't want to break even or gain anything. You sacrifice points for that item, if that makes any sense.
Well, for these perks to potentially get that item faster, yeah.
All expenditures should be a sacrifice, and you should have to think about it.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
why I actually really like that.
Yeah, and the in the Dynamis column itself, where it says 3 points to purchase a 100 currency from the Linkshell Bank, that is only applicable to the person who is currently sponsoring. So if the bank sponsored a Glacier run or a Zarkabard run, and a Montiant Silver piece dropped in there, and you really want to focus on those, you can spend 3 points to buy that 100 piece that dropped in the run.
At market value.
Well, it's just 3 points straight up because you're already voted in to that's why I wanted to come up with a way to get the sponsor, because yes, these points are more reasonable technically across the board because of the way Dynamis is scheduled, but 3 points per 100 is also steep if you're thinking about buying 20 of them, like from the bank. That's only 1/6 of a relic for that amount of points. It's not really much. So that's why that's there. That's only eligible for people who are sponsoring to be able to take advantage of that particular perk.
So does everyone feel good about the 7 points per sponsor? Because if we are going to run Dynamics twice a week, that's
Not every week.
14 points. Okay.
Yeah. The weeks where we're doing it twice, it is going to cost them 14 points. Yeah, that's true. Which is why they need a lot of points to sort of get into the game. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you also got to remember, 7 points for a Dynamis run is kind of okay because Dynamis Bastok is just a buggy mess and it's dropping way too much currency at the moment. I'm assuming that's not supposed to happen. So, I think 7 is fine.
There are certain bug reports that we don't write, Silva.
I know.
Just
saying.
Just so you know.
No. I'm trying to put it in perspective of cost. He's trying to say, 7 maybe is too little in comparison to what the cost for 100 is, but it's fine because how much did we get on Sandy? Was it 300?
Yeah, I mean,
we only 2/3, so maybe we get 400 at best.
Well, the idea is that it's not actually worth it to buy the 100 at 3 points, realistically, because if you buy 2 of them, that's almost the cost of just sponsoring a run. So that's why it sounds more reasonable to be that way. But those perks are only available if you've already been created as a sponsor, already been voted in by everyone. Everyone has the confidence that you will be able to finish this thing. So here's a little extra perk you can have in order to do that. Okay. If you want to give me feedback on the chart later, if you want to think about it, that's fine. Otherwise, I'll roll it out as is, and we'll tinker with it, and we'll hear complaints about it later when the points are too high or whatever. Point number 3, we are considering a system to add job priority to the wish list, but it is not going to be simple. And I want to hear what people have to say about that.
Disagree.
So I'll start off with a little bit of background on that. So basically, what some of the feedback that we've received is that and some of this might be alleviated by hiding the tier lists and by point expenditures and stuff like that. But it's relatively easy for someone to come in and trump you on some loot that you need for a, say, quote unquote main job that you play for the Link Shell at all of our events. Someone else can come in who doesn't really play that job and take a really good item. Like, say, for Dynamis, it could be, say, the TH4 gauntlets, right? Not everyone actually plays Thief for the Link Shell who actually has a 75 Thief. So do we want to have people declare main and sub jobs so that people who play main Thief roles at our Link Shell events get priority over someone who, I'm using Thief as an example, but you see where I'm going with this, right?
Yeah.
Now,
They have it also. So, like, when we look at the roster, it says Thief as a secondary class, but they want to get Thief's globes. It goes to the guy who's main Thieves.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, sort of an easy way that I could envision this working without changing too much of what we already do is basically you could say anything that you can put into your tier 1 of your wish list has to be for your main job. Your tier 2, your sub job, and then tier 3 and down, which we kind of already do, is whatever gear you want, right? So someone who has declared Thief as their main job are the only people who can put Assassin's Armlets in tier 1, right? Someone who has declared Thief as their secondary job could put them in tier 2. So by going that route, just by default, you're only going to be giving that best loot for that class to the people who put it in that first tier because they have declared that as their main job, right? If I all of a sudden level a Thief to 75, but it's not my main job because I want my main job to be Paladin, I am not going to be able to compete against you for that loot.
Now, there are some other angles. This isn't really a simple conversation because we do have people who come to events as a certain job because it is worth more to the Link Shell to bring that job. However, we do have other people who play other jobs that they enjoy more, and they consider that their main job, but they're not brought to Link Shell events. And it's not fair to penalize those people who play maybe a less popular job as their main job in the game as a whole. So we need to keep that in mind.
Go ahead, Vegeta.
That's how come you announced that it's your main job, though, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, and again, it's not simple. I'm not trying to oversimplify things, but even if, say, you always show up, like we could use August as an example, right? He's one of our main black mages. We know he likes to play Corsair. We know he's got a Beastmaster. If he wants to declare one of those other jobs as his main job, that's your choice. You don't necessarily have to choose Black Mage because that's the one that we ask you to come on, right? Or Arnis now with Bard. He can still choose Monk as his main job, even though we always say, hey, we could really use your Bard for this, right? So I feel like that's kind of a way around that argument, but I don't want to dismiss it outright either.
No, at that point, it's just because you're going that job because we need that job. It's not like you like it.
Yeah. It's true.
Exactly. So you can still say, "Oh, I'm this job," but since the Link Shell needs this, then you should still be able to get your main job equipped.
Right.
I agree with both points. I agree with Kaz and I agree with Sheikah. Well, and we can make a fusion by that, but just literally increasing the limit by 2. Sorry, into 2, like 2 main jobs. You have 2 main jobs and you get to put anything those 2 jobs in there. Same thing that we did when we first started this thing, where we increased the limit of a wish list into like tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and also each tier has 3 items. You can probably do the same thing with this, which is just increase the limit to 2, so that, as Digita and Sheikah are pointing out, sometimes our alt jobs is what keeps us alive in terms of gil, keeps us going and actually wanting to play the game. So I think just increasing the limit to 2 is fine.
I don't even think it should be that complicated, really. Your main job should be the one that you enjoy the most in the game. I don't think it has to be one that the Link Shell requires.
like in particular with me, I have two main jobs, thief and ranger, and third is going to be red mage, but that's mostly kind of like a backup. And like I would like the idea to be able to get gear for both at the same time.
I mean, if we wanted to become that complicated, we could introduce a tertiary job, but I think that the main job doesn't need to be dictated by the link shell. I think that should just be the job that you choose, that you enjoy the most.
So, what if we get a new guy, for example, that wants thief's gloves too, and they put in tier 1, but you have go on.
Sorry, yeah, I know I interrupted you. That's not fair. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, if we got a new member who's a thief, and they want thief gloves, but we had people having thief secondary, but they've been in more runs, would that new guy have priority because he has it on tier?
Yeah.
If the other person has it as a secondary job, I don't see why they deserve it anymore since they've been in the link shell for.
Yeah, this is the thing with the wish lists, right? That I think it's like you got to think about the long term plan. If you want an item, it's tier 1 slot 1 for you. It's not, oh, I'm gonna put thief armlets tier 3 slot 1 because I'm leveling thief and I'll get them. If we end up getting another main thief or someone declares it higher than you because they already have thief 75, that's where it is. Now when your thief gets a 75, there are certain rules that allow you to now shuffle your wish list. Okay, that is a thing. When you complete a tier, you can also shuffle your wish list, which is the thing that I announced this week. There are many people who can submit below tier 2, redo their entire wish list if they want to. It's not to do wish list. I want your wish list to be something that is mobile, something that you can manipulate in a lot of different ways, so that you can set a goal and be like, all right, I got to get to 75 this week on this job so that I can shuffle my wish list to change my priority for X item. That's a strategy that you can implement. I think the main job, secondary job thing we're talking about is a little complicated. It's not impossible to implement, but I think there's also there's already a lot of solutions built into the concerns of, oh, someone's going to jump the line on me and yada, yada, yada. If you want an item, you should declare it high. That's my opinion on it.
And on that point, Harness, it doesn't mean that someone who's been here from the very beginning has a disadvantage because that person's going to have points. They're going to have already drops going to them where they're going to be clearing tiers. So everything that Grace said about clearing tiers, spending points, reshuffling, you have that advantage as a senior member already built in.
So no one's going to jump the line on Assassin's Armlets on Kanya because he declared it as tier 1 slot 1. So as long as he has more points than the new schmo that comes in next week who's a thief, he's going to get them. It doesn't matter. He already knows how to play the game because he knows what he wants the most. And I think everyone's going to do that.
And that's when you use your points if you want to change from tier 2 to tier 1, correct? When you want to shuffle your points to something new?
Correct.
Yeah, you've got the idea, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So I know I'm not direct. I know we're not like sitting here directly addressing your guys' points by saying, okay, we're going to come up with a rule that doesn't let new people jump the line. What we're saying is you have a shitload of tools to prevent that at your disposal, and we're going to make your points worth it for you to do that. Make sense?
Yeah, I gotcha.
But also, this system's great. When I first came into the Link Shell and I found out about this system and how it works, I've never seen anything like this in any other endgame Link Shell guild or anything that I've been in, where a new person can come in and they can start receiving gear right away as soon as they start attending events. And that's awesome for new people. And that keeps new people coming into the Link Shell. You don't want to make it so the Link Shell is where a new person comes in and they're like, well, I got to wait 5 months before I even get anything. What's the incentive for joining the Link Shell and starting to contribute?
And the reason why we want to implement point perks like this is to make seniority matter more than just, oh, I have 50 points and I win a tiebreaker. That doesn't help me if everyone else is, basically coming to all the events too and the points don't really mean anything. We want it to mean something. We want you to be able to manipulate your wish list to your advantage as much as possible. So we were going to give you transparency to do that with the standings. I've already hidden the wish list so people couldn't take screenshots of them tonight. So we just want to give you tools to make you guys happy. We're trying to address your issues on all this stuff. Are we dead set on a main job, secondary job rule, and do we have a good system to go about it. I think Kez is really going for that, and there's some other supporting stuff for that. Keep in mind, we could also add point perks that allow you to change your main job and your secondary job. That is all on the table now.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to clarify. I'm not personally necessarily set on this is something that we should do or that I want to do myself. I can see the positives and negatives for it.
There's
But
always
it's,
gonna be negative.
yeah, exactly. It's just something that a few separate people had brought to me, and so I figured, hey, let's talk about it.
So if the wish list is hidden, can you send us back what you have as our wish list? Because I remember I actually found a mistake on mine. You thought I wanted the summoner body instead of the blackmace body. If I can't see it, I wouldn't have known that you had that mistake on there.
I will ensure that I do not make stupid mistakes like that again. What I've been doing, everyone has noticed, when you DM me your wish list, I pin it in our conversation so that I can look back on it, and I will double check it every time. I can't guarantee that I'm never going to fuck up, but I will do my best not to.
I'll be honest. I just want samurai shit. If Paladin drops and no one needs it, just give it to me.
I think it's only happened once, right, Ash? And that was like a very small mistake for like what, a Kieran's bowl?
Gravedigger stuff didn't get added on time because he had sent to me and I didn't see it. Lethera, yeah, the Kieran's bow with Lethera. Yeah, sure, I make mistakes. It's the thing.
So if no one wants the item but you, would you have to spend points to?
So that, like, you mean like items that currently go free lot?
No one's spending points for your item.
No, like use me for example, because if I want black belt items but no one wants them, do I spend points?
Dodgen's gonna come and steal all of your black belt items. I don't know what you're talking about.
Black belt items are going to be wish listable items.
But isn't Honest a monk main though too?
He is.
So I need to spend points on that.
No, they're rare
You
EX.
put them on your wish list.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And for the purpose of the wish list for ground stuff like that, those items will go to monk mains. Period. There will not be an argument about that.
Right.
All right, we're not going to do that to you. We're also considering something similar for a few other items. I've heard some stuff about that. I'll tell you straight up. One of them is defending ring. We may add job priorities for something like defending ring to paladins, ninjas, the tank jobs, maybe red mage because they can tank, something like that. Riddle's another one on the table. We're thinking about that. I'm personally thinking about that one too. This is not a conversation that leaders and I have had, so don't take this as an official statement. But there have already been some concerns from people on the ground stuff. Because a lot of that stuff is all jobs on the item, or it has some really weird jobs on it, and you're like, why would someone who has that job allot it? I know all you thieves want a riddle. I'm not sure why. Haven't figured that one out yet. Because your sword skill is garbage, so you know.
Clearly a farming thing, really.
Going back to the primary and secondary job, it's going to be a little more complicated than just setting and forgetting, because some people will level another job and that might become the primary job for them or become the primary job for the link ship. I started as a 75 Dragoon because that's all I had. But from the very beginning of joining the Link Shell, I know the Link Shell needed Paladins. I leveled my Paladin, and Paladin is now my primary job. So,
well, I think upon getting, it'd be similar to like with adding stuff to the list. If you get that job to 75 and intend to use that as the primary job, you should be, change. So like, eventually, if I get blue to 75, I might want to move that to my primary job. Ha.
And you can certainly do that.
I don't care.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, there are certain jobs you will get to 75 and no one will like go against priority with you because no one actually declares that gear. Like, I'm pretty sure you're the only person who's declared blue mage gear. You could have put it in tier 4 and 5, you would have still won it. Like, you know what I mean?
Not on much else.
No, I know. I'm just saying. There's certain jobs that are, not on the radar.
What's a blue mage?
I'm not quite sure, actually.
Color blue.
We are still, 15 years later, we're still quite not sure.
The jury's out on that one.
In the corner, that's a blue mage.
Do you see those level 40 blue mages that go to BCNMs and do the Hectai BCNM? Yeah, those are the blue mages.
They
have
That's the only real use.
Have you seen the blue mage that went into Promumea and it was terrible? It was the worst.
Who told you to do that?
I did it. It was bad.
Okay, so we're going to add a primary and secondary job consideration onto the roster sheet, and that will determine something that will go in the priority list. What, before the tiers are considered? After the tiers are considered? Where do you want it in the order of priority?
Oh, you mean like main job tier 1, secondary job tier 2?
Well, if we keep the wish list structure the same, where do you want the consideration for main secondary job to go? Like in the order of operations? Because right now it's tier, then slot, then if there's a tie, it goes to points. Where do you want it to be in that line? Do you want it to be at the front of the line?
It shouldn't be too strict, but I think that tier 1 should be your primary job, or at least equipable by your primary.
That's how I had envisioned it, right? So if, say, I declare Paladin as my primary job, then I can put Paladin gear in tier 1. Someone else who does not have Paladin as their primary job does not put Paladin in tier 1. Right, so
we have to do a complete revamp of what we have. Is that what you're saying?
we would have to almost resubmit, yeah.
But then that's going to screw.
Hope you all.
I feel like that might be a little bit disruptive at the moment. But if we can add it into the consideration as is right now, and then take it into account for ground,
we can do it for ground, right? Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Oh, so you can also, I mean, just using the setup we have now, just use it at after tier, but before slot. So if your primary job, so if it is your primary job and it's in tier 1, you still get priority over somebody, even if they have it in like a different slot in tier 1, I guess.
Let's do this. We don't want to wipe the table with what's currently set up. So
yeah, that's what I'm saying. This wouldn't change. You wouldn't have to change your.
We don't want to resubmit. Yeah, we don't want to resubmit everyone's wish list. But let's say that something drops. And even though someone has a higher tier or slot, if it's not their primary job and it's a primary for someone else, the primary job.
The thing is, I still feel like it should be 2 or 3 primary jobs on, so it's not disruptive, and everybody still we keep the spirit of what the wish list was before. That even though you may not, I mean, you want to play blue mage and you want blue mage items. You still get to keep getting items for your blue mage, but still you get to have other items from other jobs, like for example, but you have to play paladin or you have to play red mage, and you get items as well for those jobs. So I feel like 2 jobs is enough. 3 would be nice.
Yeah, and to High Times' point, yes, we could absolutely separate with the main and secondary wish list, but I think that removes the competitive nature and the strategy of the wish list, because then you essentially will be doubling the amount of items you can declare. And we're trying to make it a little competitive. And if we expand the available list of items from 15 to 30 per person, I think these perks are a little less important as well. This system is balanced with that in mind, that there's 15 items, 3 per tier, and you can choose to go the route of putting 3 really easy items to get up front to lock a tier out and then shuffle everything below it, or whatever other strategy you decide to go about with your wish list. For most people, they're not coming up with a strategy. They're just saying, these are the top 15 items I want. And for most people, that suffices. If we had too many slots, it may sort of break down the system too much, just because everything's taken into consideration at this point.
Wait, you said about if they have an alt, correct? That they'll just consider one person. Like, let's say, since Bard is my secondary job, and since Fowler has an alt that has a Bard as main, would Fowler's alt have higher priority for me?
Yes.
Yeah, the alts just have less slots per wish list.
Yeah, alts are still limited by the number of slots they get.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Fal hasn't declared anything for his alt. He hasn't even told me to put it on the list anyway. So
Yeah. What we're trying to do is we're trying to take into consideration jobs because that was important to a few people. Trying to take into consideration jobs while changing the minimum amount of anything else that we have to.
Yeah, gotcha.
yeah. So if we want to put job at the front of the line for consideration, I think it's okay, but it can go anywhere in the system that you guys want.
No, I say after. I say after wish list, because again, now it's all about what your job is. And one thing that I also wasn't considering as well is the fact that, well, if I'm putting Ranger as my main, let's say I put Ranger as my main, and someone else just put Thief as their main, and I put Thief on second, and they put Ranger on second. So we have this. I forgot that they are gimping their Ranger, and I'm gimping my Thief. So I kind of forgot about that. So I think. Yeah, so there is this innate competitive nature to it, I guess.
Yes.
But eventually, we will be able to get the items. So that's something I also kind of forgot, which is we will get them. We're just not going to get them instantly.
Right.
So,
You get it in the order in which you sort of choose, and against everyone else's sort of choose. Because 4 people could put the same item in tier 1 slot 1. Someone's going to get it first, second, and third, and fourth.
And the way drops work in any game, not just 11, there's going to be competitiveness because somebody's going to get it before somebody else. That's just the way the system works. And, it's not them screwing somebody else. That's just the way it
I don't know, man. I'm not
Okay. So where do we want the job consideration to happen? Going back to that question.
I like it first.
Before. No, before, I said.
Before everything?
No, I mean, sorry. It would be wish list first. So tiebreaker from points, and then.
Well, tiebreaker doesn't go first.
What?
Tiebreaker goes last.
We're talking about 15 slots per main character. So already you have way more variations of who would get the thing first. We're talking about putting main and secondary jobs as priority above that list. Otherwise, it's worth nothing, and there's no point in us introducing it.
So the first consideration on the list then. Job, and then tier, then slot, then points.
Yeah, I find that the most fair.
Yeah,
I mean,
it makes sense.
Don't want someone I period want just the BB items, and it's my first main job, so.
But let's say, for instance, just so we're looking at this, sorry, Kez, if Arnis decides to make Bard his primary for one reason or another, and we have a brand new Bard who enters the Link Show, and they claim that as their primary, and they list something higher tier than yours, they're still going to get, because you're both primary job Bard.
Yes.
Yes, I find that fair.
So I just want to say that in effect, what you're doing, if by putting job as the first consideration, is you're still just doing exactly what I've said, which is you only put, say Paladin gear on tier 1, because it doesn't matter. If only Paladins can put Paladin gear on tier 1, then that's still the first consideration. All you're doing is you're trying to add another level of complexity, whereas I'm solving the same thing by just restricting what you can put into tier 1. It ends up being the same. It's going to be a lot easier in terms of logic and sorting to just say, if you're a Paladin, you can put your Paladin items in tier 1. Consider the alternative. Okay, I'm rolling against Jita. Jita is not Paladin tier 1. But I am. So we've both got defending ring, tier 1, slot 1. But it doesn't matter because I'm a Paladin main and he's not, so I'm going to get it. So it's just the exact same as if I had that item as tier 1, slot 1 on. You know what I mean?
Kaz, it's going to mean less for Dynamis, seeing as those particular items can be equipped by anyone. Am I wrong? Those two items. There's no lockout. As far as defending ring and mantle, those are all jobs.
Well, but what we're saying and what Ash said is that we will be mandating priority on some of those items.
Yeah.
Priority and necessary.
Right. We're not going to give the first defending ring that drops to someone who's like a bard main.
It's not going to a black mage, I'll tell you right now.
Damn it.
Mine actually survived.
Regardless of tier.
Like, imagine
It's
we
an
need.
all jobs item. It goes to all jobs.
Cisa, you're Atari. You'll die anyway.
Yeah, you don't need it.
There are
At that
listen.
point-
The whole reason that we have to come up with a set of rules for items and restrict who can get what to some degree, okay? On one hand, it's to help the overall health of the link shell, and number two is to like sort of try to cure SE's stupidity and the jobs that they put on certain jobs, or when they declare all jobs on something. Like, listen, all of the torques in C are all jobs, okay? But if you're going to wear the katana and agility plus 5 torque on your white mage because you think that's cool, you're dumb. So there will just be priority for certain items because it makes sense for there to be, even if Square Enix did not declare it on the item itself. I mean,
And it will make it easier on guns too.
it's just
Paladin gets defended.
it just has to be this way. Like it's ridiculous. I know that we have to band-aid this shit, but that's what we have to do sometimes.
Don't torque me.
And we've been doing really well as a link shell so far, like killing everything, right? We've been doing good as a link shell. We have a good group of people, but we're going to need more gear for Shadow Lord. We're going to need more gear for certain H&Ms to make sure that those go smooth.
Yeah, we just want to nudge gear in a direction if we can. And we're not talking about every item. We're talking about literally really big ticket items. Okay? Stuff that is so rare that if we get one as a link shell and it doesn't go to a member that that benefits the link shell overall, we're kind of wondering if that was a good idea for us overall. That's what I'm saying. It's fine. You can have an opinion against it. It's okay. This is just something that makes sense to the overall health of the link shell.
Right. So my point is, if we are saying that, you know, declaring your main job or your secondary job should be more important than whatever tier you've got it on, then the easiest way with changing the least amount of things is just saying tier 1 is for main jobs, tier 2 is for main job or for sub jobs, tier 3 and below, just like it is now, it's for anything that you want, regardless of whether or not you can equip it, or regardless of whether or not you use it in events. That's my opinion, and that's all that I'm going to say on that.
I think it would be best to just make all tier 2 and under whatever you want and just only have to declare one main job for.
So in Kez's situation, you would only really be able to put 3 things for your main job, and then you'd have to go all the way to tier 3. You'd skip. Correct?
You know what? I don't even think it's that to that level of restriction. I think it's just you declare your main job. You can still put stuff on tier 1 and 2 that you can wear, but once the sorting comes into play, the main job is going to be taken into consideration because it gets taken into consideration first.
Okay, so yeah, that's where I personally was confused. That means I can only put things on tier 1 that have to do only with the main job.
Well, the alternative that you're suggesting, Salva, is that job matters most. And so if that's the case, then you may as well just have all of your job. Well, okay. So whomever suggested that, it's the equivalent, is what I'm saying. So, but yes, what we're trying to do is we're trying to say, because it's a trade-off, right? We can do it the way that we're doing it now, and you can just go just based on the tier list. We don't have to put this main job, sub-job thing into play. We don't have to. We can go with the way it is now. You can have your tier 1 slot 1 item be for ranger, your tier 1 slot 2 item be for thief. Not a problem. We can continue that way if everyone's happy with that. But what that means is someone else who doesn't really play ranger can also come in and beat you on those items, and then you're left there sitting feeling like, why did we give that ranger piece to that guy who never ever plays ranger just because he has it leveled up, right? So it's just to alleviate, I think, some of those feelings of, you know, everyone and their mother has a level 75 thief, but I'm the thief for the link shell. I should get priority on those armlets, for example.
I think that's one of those things where you just, I mean, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. It's one of those things where as a link shell, we have to just all literally make sure that, as you said, the defenders goes to the the defenders goes to the paladin. The first armlets are probably going to go to Connor and Bone because they're the pullers of the link shell. It's just one of those things where we just have to put ourselves where we belong in the link shell as a member, and we understand that that guy needs them. We just need to have it on him, so he pokes everything.
Yes, that's leaving it to be a little subjective, I think. Like, if we have objective rules in place that take care of that for us, then you can't start, getting into arguments about favoritism or whatever. I think the more things that are spelled out and objective, probably the better in the long run.
Yeah. So declare your main and secondary jobs to me at some point throughout the week. I'll update the list. We'll take it into consideration when we are distributing gear. I think the officers can pretty much handle that. Like, if we know that someone is a main for something and we're looking at the list and it's like, all right, well, these two people get this item, they're equal, we have to consider the job priority as well. We're going to do that on the spot.
So I can still put, let's say, in my case, gloves as first, but the job priority will take priority. If I decide to put ranger as my priority and someone else put thief, then therefore it goes to him first.
My thought about it is we're just going to declare jobs, and then as we're distributing gear, that's just going to be taken into consideration. Because, I guess you could add that to the pivot table for the items there, Kez, but that sounds like it'd be really complicated to add into the sorting.
That's precisely why I'm suggesting the way that I'm suggesting. But if we don't like it, then that's fine. What you can do is it only comes into play when there's a tie, but then that isn't quite true either, right? So if, for example, Selva declares he's a ranger first, and Kanya is the thief, and somehow based on the sorting they are tied, then Kanya probably should have put that item one spot higher. But if they're tied like that, then we're saying, okay, Kanya's the thief, we should give it to him. But the alternative is Selva can still have that item one slot higher than Kanya, and he's getting it first.
Yep.
Because of the way that he's put it. So what it means is it allows you a little bit more flexibility to get all of the important gear for your main job before other people do, right? Say there are two really good pieces. An example, I don't know, say Black Mage has two really good Dynamis pieces, and you would rather have both of those pieces go to someone who plays Black Mage for us as opposed to someone who just has a 75 Black Mage. Because you can't put both of those pieces tier 1 slot 1, someone has the ability to sneak in there and steal it from someone who actually plays Black Mage for us at events. It's just another way of trying to secure those really strong pieces for the people that actually play those jobs for us day in, day out. Again, I'm not an advocate for this. I'm not trying to defend it like tooth and nail here. I sometimes can be a little bit passionate about things, but if you don't declare main jobs and have job be the first priority, then you may as well not declare jobs.
Well, here's what makes sense based on the way you're saying it and the way I'm hearing it, is the order for determining who would get gear. It would go tier and slot, and then job. Then it would go to tiebreakers, and job would actually be the first tiebreaker, then points.
If tier and slot goes first, then we might as well not do primary and secondary job.
That's exactly what I just said.
It's worth nothing.
Job needs to be first.
Okay.
If we're going to declare job at all, then job has to be first. And
Got it.
The easiest way to do that is to say tier 1, bam, is your main job, right?
But the only caveat I was adding, just to alleviate a little bit of what I'm trying to say, is we still are allowed to put any item we want on tier 1, straight up. But the job has priority.
Yes.
Now, of the people in this room, are we okay with this idea of adding the primary job thing into consideration for the wish list?
Yeah, and it's not throwing away our current system. The current system's still in place. This is just an addendum to it.
Right. The majority in here are okay with it. Go ahead.
Has there been a time recently where the job priority would have came into play that would have actually made a significant impact?
Nope.
I have an example from FF14 if you want.
Nope. Not applicable.
Nope.
It is not. It has not happened here, and because, as Jem is saying, the wish list there is about picking the priority of your items, and I personally don't understand why we want to have a job priority. But I was willing to hear this out and see what you guys would think about it. And if the majority of people want this, we'll add it. But I personally do not see the reason for it. But if people are for it, okay, we'll add it. We'll add another thing in front of the wish list.
Let me play a little devil's advocate to what Jem is saying, okay? And I want to respect everyone's opinions. But if you're coming into the link shell and you want, if it's more important to you to take a high value item that is going to take away from the link shell as a whole, maybe you shouldn't come to a link shell where we all work together to get the items. You know what I mean?
Agreed.
So if you're coming into this, thinking, hey, I'm going to take the defending ring so I can solo easier, it's kind of defeating the purpose of us working as a group to get that.
What link shell doesn't work together? Remind me.
Okay. We're all working together.
Anyway.
I mean, that's not really the question. I think that's not the best example of it. I think the question is, like, when it comes to something like Assassin's Armlets is really the item that stands out the most here. Selva has a thief also that he likes to farm with, and he has every right, in my opinion, to put that in tier 1 slot 1 on his alt, which only has 2 slots per tier. And if he wants it and he wins it over Kanya because they have all the tiebreaker and he wins the roll off, Selva should get it because he declared it. He used his slot to do that. And we are essentially saying that we're okay with sort of doing away with that and adding a job priority in front of things.
And I think Assassin's Armlet is actually a really good item to highlight this point. Then
It's really the only one.
Well, it's not, because I do actually have another case where this almost happened. So, but for example, using those Thief's Armlets, what just happens then is if Selva takes that item over Kanya, we don't have TH4 on our Dynamis puller.
All right, well, we've been living with that TH4 up to that point, right? I understand what you're saying, and I know we want...
It's like saying we're going to give a defending ring to a monk. Like, it's the same thing. Why?
It's not, because he can come in to Dynamis on his thief and give us Treasure Hunter 4. Whereas the monk with the defending ring and shadows is not using the defending ring. Like, I understand. It's about the application of the item, and I get it. And I would absolutely want the person who's main thief to get it. But I also I do have some respect for just the straight up wish list strategy of, hey, if he declared it there, why can't he lot it too, you know?
Yeah.
I just, Owen, dude, what you got against counter stance tanking? Got a problem, bro?
But also,
so many problems.
With what Gray is saying, there's something to be said with this wish list still staying fair to everyone. And we shouldn't say, just because you have this job or that job, you're absolutely not getting this item. That's not fair to everyone. We're just saying introduce something else. Go ahead, Jim.
If you want a TH4 for our Dynamis, then that should be your high priority item. Like, I don't get where this extra layer of complexity has to come in.
Yeah, and you better come as thief too.
Well, so the issue being, in the case of the armlets, when it comes to if it's me against Selva or me against, if it was me and Bone, I'm going to win out. I have more points, no matter, we're both sitting at tier 1, slot 1. If it's me and Selva, Selva's going to win out. He's got points. The problem there is now he's got to come on Thief, which means we lose a white mage, unless he's going to D-box and pool and tag everything.
Potentially, or we recruit another white mage. I mean, there's... Yeah, no, the thing is, we're looking at it as a snapshot. Okay, we're saying, yes, Selva now has to come on Thief because we want to take advantage of TH4's 1% bonus. I get it. Makes perfect sense for the link show overall. But we may also recruit a white mage or 2 next week when the game goes back live, and then we don't care if Selva goes on Thief. We may not need his white mage as much, so if he doesn't want to come a white mage, doesn't have to. There's things are always in flux. You know what I mean?
We could recruit a white mage who doesn't run away.
No, so that's perfectly fine. But if if the members can come to a consensus where, you know, me and Silver are sitting there talking in chat, where he would be willing to pass on them for me, even if they were his tier 1 slot 1. I mean, I don't know if there's a primary and secondary need there. It's just kind of a consensus, like, hey, you're always coming thief. You already have the TH3 that'll put you at TH4. That benefits the link shell as a whole. And people, you know, we're not 18 years old or 16 years old, like, oh, I need that, fuck you. It's about the better of the link shell.
Like Jem's saying too, we shouldn't lock people out. If Jem wants to get a defending ring, he should have, you know, a chance of getting a defending.
Yeah, I kind of, after thinking this over, I kind of just want to stay with the tier system, because there are
The
some
secondary
items
system is subject to cross bias, like heavily.
Yeah, and the reason we didn't, because this came up, if I recall, when months back when we developed the wish list, the whole main job, secondary job thing did come up, and that's why we said, okay, so everything that's tier 3 and below has to be, you know, tier 1 and 2 has to be stuff you can wear now, which was kind of our compromise for not declaring main job and secondary job, because we knew people are going to be constantly changing their main jobs and secondary job. Every time I've gotten a new job to 75, my main job has changed in the Sling Shell. I am now a fucking red mage, okay? I used to be a Beastmaster. What happened, right? Because because between us guys, listen, I don't want to bicker about gear. This is fucking all virtual bullshit, okay? We should all be on honor system. And if someone in this Sling Shell can't be on honor system to say, you know what? Yeah, we both have that shit in the same slot, but you should get it because you're here more. You're welcome to extend that. Otherwise, if you don't want to, you don't have any need to. But I would like to think that the people in this Sling Shell that we recruit can do that. Can do that for one another.
Can I point out something real quick?
Yep.
I was gonna say, there's one thing we haven't considered, just straight up what Con said, what I'm saying as well, and what you just literally said. Why don't we just add an option to pass? Straight up, like, I mean,
I was about to bring it up.
Like,
Yeah,
I mean,
that's
honestly, like, where in the hell in my mind will I take the TH4 from Con? I mean,
okay.
There's the little devil in my shoulder saying, "Take it, do it," but I'm not gonna do it. Like this.
Do it.
Well, Ashford already did say that is an option to pass just for those. Like that was.
Yeah, and I think the using points kind of can override the job priority too.
Yeah,
that's an option.
Or
I was going to
your points.
That point that Selva just made, and I didn't bring it up to Gray or the rest of the officers prior to this, but I had thought about it as far as the no passing rule. Okay, so my tertiary job is now Beastmaster, but Beastmaster is nowhere near 75. Even if I got Beastmaster gear right now, I wouldn't be able to use it for like over a month or 2 months, however long it takes me to get 75. Gray has a Beastmaster already, and he can probably use a lot of those pieces. So if those end up dropping and I have priority for Beastmaster gear, I want the option to say, you know what? I don't need it right now. I'm going to pass it to whoe's next on the list.
That's fine. That's fine. And just so you, and that's great, and I appreciate that. Here's what. When I took the wish list rules and put them, and the regular rules and put them on the website, I actually removed the clause for not being able to pass gear, and I forgot to tell you guys that. It used to be under tiebreakers. The line used to be players involved in a complete tie can choose to pass to another tied player, and then in parentheses it used to say, this is the only time you're able to pass gear. I removed that. So you can pass. Because people did sort of say that every now and then, and it wasn't like a major point or whatever, but you can pass. All right? If you want to give up your tier 1 slot 1 to someone else who has less points than you, go for it. Does that solve this problem? Do we have to add a job priority if we allow passing, and we have this wish list shuffling shit, and everything else remains the same?
Yes, I think the points, you play around with the points would be the biggest factor in getting your items.
Okay, so I'm going to remove this bullet point.
And I think that we're all... Sorry, Fab.
Like the one mentioned earlier, riddles and thieves.
Okay. Well,
what would happen in this?
Okay, so that we can talk about. I wanted to sort of introduce it this way. All right, Ground Kings. As of tonight, you can start submitting your wish list for ground. Okay, the items that are eligible for ground are already pinned in the SI chat. It's the last pin. It says ground wish list items. It includes the 3 Ground Kings and their NQ versions because they dropped the black belt items. Cerberus, Hydra, Kamara, Fafnir, Nidhogg, all that shit. Vertra, Tiamat, and Jormungand are all on that list. All right, obviously KB and regular Behemoth, and also King Vinegaran. So the heavy shell is on there. The Aces helm. I went through the list. I double checked it. I think with Foul a little while back. It should be solid. It should be every item in Abjuration at those particular those like 10 mobs drop. Okay. On the list itself, the vast majority of the items already have the jobs that they should have on them. All right. So Haratis are going to Paladins and shit like that. All right. There are certain items on the list that are all jobs items that we have some problems with that we can talk about, and also some special considerations for gearing up certain members of the Link Shell. So the 3 exceptions, in case you didn't read the rules completely, are you can declare a Cerberus mantle on your wish list. You can declare a Hades Sainty on your wish list. These are both items that are crafted from Cerberus. You will get the items to craft one of them, and then it's off your wish list item. You can also declare a Shair Mantille, which is made up of the Kashmir items. And when you kill Vertra, you basically get enough items to make 1 Mantille. You have to craft 2 of the threads into a cloth, and then you use those 3 cloths to make the Mantille. If the synth breaks, obviously you don't get it. So the all jobs ones are Defending Ring, Shadow Mantle, which is also Dynamis, Shadow Ring, the Black Belt items, which don't have a job on them, but we know what they're for, and the Riddle, which is not an all jobs item, but is like War, Thief, Beast, Dark, and Samurai for some strange reason. By our rules, if you can wear the gear, you can declare it, right? So technically, if you're a Samurai, you can declare a Riddle number 1. Having run Link Shells for a long time, I personally have some issues with the particular high ticket items that are on there. They bug me. So my proposal was that for certain all jobs items, which include the Shadow Mantle and the Shadow Ring and the Defending Ring, they would be considered to say on them, instead of all jobs, Paladin, Ninja, Red Mage, any other thing you could possibly argue that could be a tank on there. Black Belt items would be considered monk only items, so they would have to go tier 3 and below if you weren't monk. And a Riddle we would want to put just basically as Dark and War only consideration, and that's it. So Thief, Samurai, Beast would be off the list. That is a conversation that I think is going to take some time, and I know there's going to be some issues with that potentially. So please go ahead and talk about them. I don't think we have problems with the black belt items, so let's just take that off the list. Go straight to the other 4.
Here's my point to say the Riddle, for instance. I would not want to take a Riddle from anyone else who's actually going to use it on their primary job to benefit the Link Shell. But maybe somewhere down the line, when I have Beastmaster 75, eventually I'll want a Riddle, right? To play around with it on Beastmaster. But by that time, everyone who really needs to have one, who is more of a priority job, will have gotten it, and that's fine.
Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the rooms. Come on, thieves. Every single thief has a Link Shell. Let's just let it have. Let the Darks have it. Let the Dark Knights have it. It's fine.
Dark Knights. What's that?
Yeah, the job priority on Riddle would basically go Dark, War, Thief, Beast, Sam. We would look at it in that sort of order, I guess, if you wanted to include all the jobs on it. So if it's the same slot for 2 people, and one of them's a Dark Knight 75, it should go to them. This is going back to the conversation we just had about job priority, just for these particular items.
I'm 100% okay.
And you guys have to yay or nay that or hate it or whatever.
I'm thinking War and Thief are on the same level because it's not going to bring anything more to the. I mean, I guess it would bring more to Dynamic.
It will bring more to Zerg for Warrior as well. That's the thing. Like, It's way above thief. Okay, it's way above thief. For thief, it's not even an XP item. For warrior, it is an XP
Right.
item.
It is
It's an XP and a Zerg item. You're talking about mighty strikes with a riddle. Does some damage.
It's going to be best in slot for any situation we need a slash ninja warrior, which is a lot.
A lot.
Limbus, Dynamis, Sky, even.
See, like Dynamis is the main thing I'm thinking that you would use it.
It's a TP burn weapon. You know, like the Zerg weapon. Obviously, dark gets the most use out of it. We have 0.75 darks.
Right.
Right
That's
now.
what I was wondering. It's definitely Dark Knight first.
But as far as a priority, that still needs to be considered, right? So, go ahead. Let's talk about the riddle. I want to hear more arguments about the riddle.
Samurai first. Confirmed.
I'm okay with that, honestly. I mean, we don't have to talk about the other ones. Come on, Defender, Paladins, it's for that.
And then it goes back to the conversation that we're all adults here, and I think that most of us want the betterment of the link shell above personal gain.
See, this could be weird. Just for just what Kanye said, like somebody is going to level Dark Knight just to get it. In front
Great.
of somebody.
Great.
I mean,
or then not use the Dark Knight.
Please do.
The Dark Knight.
Well, I mean, if they're refusing to use the Dark Knight when we need them to, then that's another problem. But if they
Right, that's what I'm saying.
level
Like,
it,
I don't think
get a
they're
riddle,
refusing.
and then use it for Dynamite.
I'll bring my dark. I'll bring a dark. You don't want TH4? I'll bring a dark. That's fine.
I mean, really, if you're that crappy of a person that you're gonna level Dark Knight to get an item that you're not even gonna come to the Link Shell events with, everyone's gonna know that. Everyone's gonna know.
I'm gonna level dark to get it for my thief. It's that.
Exactly.
Well, that's fine as long as you go and switch to Dark Knight when we do DL, or King Vinegarun, or Kirin. You know, like there's going to be a thief to apply feint, and you can always let them borrow the knife for TH. You know, that's not. At least the thief knife can be traded. You know, riddles can't be traded. That's the issue here.
Nah, I know.
I level out Dark Knight, but I just go Bard anyway.
And I want to be honor system about the rest of this as well. However, going back to the point of there's some gear in this game that's much easier to get than others, okay? A Duelist Chapeau is much easier to get than a Riddle. And those are the two items that are kind of the, you know, at the tippity top of their individual events, you know, defending ring aside. You know, and that's just it, because one of them's instance, and one of them is just something you can spam every week. We can go to Dynamis and get Duelist Chapeaus. We might get 5 fucking Duelist Chapeaus the first time we go into Zarkabard. We don't know what's going to happen. We may not get a riddle for 20 Fafnir kills if we kill Fafnir 20 times. You know? So this, in my opinion, needs a little more attention than just the honor system. I want to have a rubric in place or a set of rules to deal with, you know, this. But I do want people to think it's fair, and if they disagree with me, then it's free for all. Then whatever job's on it is whatever job can put it on their tier 1 and 2.
And I think.
Oh, no,
Go ahead, Tom.
Fine, we'll go ahead. I'm gonna assume when we do say Defending Ring, Shadow Mantle, and Shadow Ring can be a Red Mage item, that's underscored by the fact that you're actually going to tank on Red Mage.
It's a tank job in this particular environment. So if other people level Red Mage and they tank, it's gonna be the best low man tank that we have.
Oh no, I think it's great. I'm just saying, I guarantee
They're actually going to tank and not be a support, is what you're saying.
Yeah, listen, you can put it as Paladin Ninja only. I don't care if we feel that that's what we want to do. I'm cool with it too.
I think it's great to put Red Mage on it. I'm just saying there should be an idea of, like, if you're just...
I say we just put Paladin in there and that's it.
If Kez will let me tank on Red Mage, I will tank on Red Mage.
Yeah, man, come on down.
I mean, there's a lot of times where, if you're talking about Paladin versus Ninja, there's a lot of times where Paladin is sub-Ninja, and it's a worthless item anyway.
No, it's not. No.
I mean, just as it's worth as much as a Ninja Warrior. Let's put it that way.
It's probably worth more to Paladin, honestly, overall, than any job. But yes, Ninja is... It's good. It's really good at Ninja, and it's very, you know, because there's going to be stuff you take under Shadows. There just is.
Yeah, I would say any tank.
It's good in any tank.
Yeah.
And it's not worthless on any job, like Jem is saying. You know, it's has utility for every job, just to a varying degree. You know, even a Black Mage does get use out of out of a D ring. It's not to say that they don't. It's just who's going to be taking more damage on average, right?
Yeah, I was just making the point that it's not a huge jump up for Paladin over Ninja if they're both tank.
Yeah, I would definitely argue against like tiering it Paladin above.
I mean, it's not an argument about being selfish. It goes to this is a difficult discussion to have because I know I'm a tank. If I was anything but a tank, I'm still having the same discussion though because I've been down this road before. And if we have main paladins and we have main ninjas and I'm not one of those, I want to see it go to them. That's just how it is.
That's just being considerate at that point.
Yeah, it's not that I'm selfish or that I think anyone disagreeing is selfish. But we just had a discussion on it being honor system for everything else. I want this to be honor system too. The problem is when you have gear that's incredibly rare, it becomes difficult to justify only leaving the honor system, and sort of trusting everyone to make sure it's all copacetic at the end of the day. It's hard. It's really, really hard. I don't know how many D rings exist on Eden. I have no idea. I'd imagine it's less than 10. Probably less than 5, for all I know. And who knows which ones came from Kupo, where things were slightly different. So we're talking about an item that we may only get one of them all year.
If there is someone that has it from Kupo, it's probably whatchamacallit, SD Spoon Daggers, because they were the only ones that were camping that back then.
Sure. I could go ask Bass right now how many there are. He probably knows.
The fact that it's so rare to me, it increases the argument that priority shouldn't exist on it. That's like winning the fucking lottery. That's like.
Well, let's put it this way: if you were designing this game and you put an item like Defending Ring in the game,
I think it's all jobs for a reason. So if we can cut that argument off.
Yeah, I don't agree, and I don't agree with that. I think that there should be jobs on it. But all the rings in the game are all jobs. All the rings in the game are, for the most part, all jobs items. So it fell into this category of just being all jobs.
To me, with the Defending Ring, it's more jobs needed more than others. I mean, some jobs need more than other jobs.
It's not even a need. It's they get more utility out of it, for sure.
Why the hell would I lot on a D ring? Let's say, okay, let's go into the ifs and buts and whatever. I'm a freaking thief and a ranger. Why ain't that? And I'm a Taru for that also as well, by the way. Why the hell would I fucking lot on that on top of a pal? Let's say we both had it for some reason on tier 1. Like, I would nowhere ever lot on that on top of Paladin. I would just feel like shit for doing.
And that goes back to the point Ashton said, like
honor system, yeah, and allowing passes.
Do we want to leave it up to honor system? I'm cool with it too. I would prefer to have a safety net on ground items, but I'm not the final decision here. So, and if we want to only talk about Riddle, then that's fine too. We can throw Defending Ring, Shadow Mantle, and leave it up to the will and the whim of the wish list. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with it because it's going to be number 1 for me. I know it is, so it doesn't matter. But again, there might be someone else who puts it as number 1. They're also going to be a tank job, I guarantee. I'm going to be lotting against Kaz or Sheikah or both of them. It's just how it goes. And I'm fine with that because I know that tanks are going to prioritize it more. I don't know what if it factors into Jem's opinion or not, if he's going to declare it high either. That doesn't mean it's neither here nor there. It's a matter of principle. You either are for it or against it, or you want to leave it up to what it is. And I'm willing to do whatever. I'm not here to cause conflict or create problems or think that I'm trying to get gear for myself or anything like that. None of that matters to me. Whatever's fair. Whatever's fair.
I'm very for putting those specific items on a job.
I agree with it as well. All right, we'll just say tanks for the main 3: Shadow Ring, Shadow Mantle, D Ring, and then we'll do Dark Knight Warrior Thief on Riddle, and then the other ones don't matter.
So ground is on its own points, right?
Yes.
What are you whoa over there?
You forgot Samurai.
Oh.
Sam. We'll put Samurai. Sam and B still be on the same level of consideration.
Yes.
Okay, so I don't even think we need to talk about those anymore. It's pretty set.
Okay. Any other last?
lot of samurai stuff, so
Well, I mean,
I've had the people.
And yes, ground will be on a separate list entirely. So your current amount of points is not going to factor into ground. It's going to be up to, what you can get while in ground. Now, the decision for ground points is something that we need to discuss too. Is sort of the last item on the list tonight. How do we want to do points for ground? Because for the instant stuff, it's easy. It's 1 point per hour. For ground, if we do that, it will vary because if something pops first window, we're going to give at least a minimum of 1 point for showing up. Do we want to also have kills, bonus points for kills? I mean, do we want to not do that because we don't want to encourage claim botting? Like, how do we want to approach it? I know this is hard because some people maybe not have done ground, but it's brutal out there. And I'm telling you now, you're going to be against 80 other people. Arnis has seen it because he goes to visit. There are multiple link shells out there spamming at window, and we are not going to get it every time.
I mean, I don't know. We've got Selva in here, so he seems to outclaim him.
Alright, look. See, here's the thing. I can claim 1 yam away, so yes.
Hey, Selva. Shorthand's illegal, Selva.
I think it's gonna be hard to do like certain points because you have those specific 3-hour window ones, but then you're also adding like Chimera and all those Tau ones out there, which are 48 to 72. Like, how are we going to determine points for someone that's gonna?
Well, that's the thing. Like, obviously, we're not going to camp the TOA or the COP worms.
Right. But, like, is the person who goes out to like check that it's up, are they going to get a point? Or like, how are we going to do that?
I mean, that's it's we can do that. Yeah, we can definitely have a scout point. Actually, I had this in my old link show. We did give a point for scouts.
We'd be scouting all the time.
Yeah, people made scout points. We had claim points. We had kill points. We had camp time points. I mean, we had everything.
Correct. I think everyone's time should be worth the same. I think we should still continue to get a point per hour, whether or not we're sitting around doing nothing. If we go out and check, if we're actually there for the claim and the kill, 1 hour is 1 point.
Okay. Yeah.
You can't. You should be able to leave like a mule out there for 24 hours straight.
No.
Points.
No. We're not. We're only going to do camp. If we do camp points for time, we're only doing it for Rise of the Zilart mobs. That's it. The 3 kings. For Tiamat and Chimera and everything else. It's only. I mean, because it's not Jorm, it's not Vertra. It's Tiamat, it's Chimera, and Serb. Hydra is another one that I think just sits up sometimes. It's not as high priority. But for those 3 or 4, it's it'll be. We'll give points to the person who finds it first, and then we'll give points for the kill on everything. But for Rise of the Zilart, we'll add time points onto it. Because some of the more rare items come out of that. People want Dogmaticas. They're going to want riddles. They're going to want, Wormholes, other Wormhole stuff. They're going to want Defending Ring, whatever. Whatever we want out of that stuff. It's obviously all good. So we want camp points for Rise of the Zilart. 1 hour is 1 point as usual. And then we want kill points. What do we want to do for kills?
I mean, should we do kill points though?
Well, how are we gonna award for Tiamat then? And Chimera and Serb if we don't do kill points?
I'm not understanding. Are you talking about like a minimum point value?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, if you show up to an event, if it's less than an hour, you still get a point.
Yeah, you're gonna get a point. It's always rounded up. So let's say Rise of the Zilart, we're giving camp points. Do we also want to give points for kill, or do we want to only give?
So.
Okay.
No, probably not.
No, just a minimum point value.
Okay, so our hourly rate, and then for the COP worm and Chimera and Serb, what do we want to do? How many points are those worth to kill?
Maybe. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there. Like, the most points that you'll ever get out of a king is 3 hours, right? I mean,
yes.
Say a worm equal that 3 points.
To Gryffindor.
I'm not sure I understand the kill value of points. I thought it was just going to be time, and if it's less than an hour, you still get a point.
Sure, but there's some mobs you don't camp. You just, when they pop, you go out, you rush them.
We're all just
right. And then everyone's all going to get 1 point. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, she could make sense too.
I guess we could do that, yeah.
1 point per kill? For a kill?
I mean, there's no kill points in that system. There will just be a time point.
Yeah, so that'll take us like 40 minutes to kill 2
You round up, yeah.
We're just rounding up to 1 point.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, there's no bonus for being there.
So you don't want to do any flat rate kill point.
No, because let's say we're camping. Let's say, for instance, we're camping something for, I don't know, something stupid like 3 or 4 hours. And then right before the pop happens, that person has to go. It shouldn't be that whoever's able to stay for the actual kill automatically gets like more points than the 3 previous hours that that person camped for the.
Okay, so everything is just time based.
I mean, it'd be fair enough if it pops and the item they want drop, but they didn't come in.
Yeah, and they're not there for it, so that's the only punishment for.
Okay, that's fine. I'm fine with that. Is everyone okay with that? If we camp Fafnir for 3 hours and then it takes us half an hour to kill, we're getting 3.5 hours worth of points, which rounds up to 4 points. Everyone's cool with that?
Repeat that, but a little slower, Ash, please.
If you're at Fafnir and kill Fafnir and it takes a total of 3.5 hours, that's 3.5 points, which we round up to 4 points. Everyone's cool with that. Same system we have now, basically. It's just time investment.
How worried are we about like what Ponky is saying with incentivizing?
Yeah, I'm okay with
That's what I was
that.
considering. Like, if
I'm okay
someone
with
gets a
that.
claim, but
Yeah,
sometimes
because
it's
we're
very hard to
competing.
tell.
Yeah, we're competing with, all these other shells, and there's a possibility that we're going to spend all these hours between 18 people or whoever shows up, and then we don't even get the claim, and we get nothing. So incentivizing whoever actually gets the claim for the link shell, give them a bonus point. That's
Okay, it's very difficult to determine who gets the claim. I will tell you that right now, because I've been down this road before. For the scout points is really what is a better idea to go. It's a more precise idea. It's not that we can't determine who claims, but the person who will be first in the log may vary between people because of the way the server works. The scout points idea is neat because we will need people to go scout Cerberus and Chimera and Tiamat and call that it's up, and then we'll have to call a rush, and everyone has to go and rush down there.
Yeah.
So that's worth something, I think. What do we want to give people for that? 1 point? 2 points? What do we want?
Yeah, one
we're
extra
talking
point.
about like what I'm okay with that because we're talking about like you're literally, let's say I leave my alt all day out there just to see when it's about to spawn. That's you're gimping yourself in general over the day by leaving your character out there
Yep.
just trying to scout. So I think the scout point is.
Okay,
And if you're a single
makes sense.
boxer, sorry. And if you're not really dual boxing, if you're just a player that has one character, and you leave him out there, I think it's fine to incentivize a point because you left your character out there.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think that's fine. It's going to be 1 point, so it's going to be 1 point.
Happens when like 7 people go and just put a mule at Tiamat.
It's gonna be first come first serve. Okay. Does that make sense? Not that I don't want 5 people to go out there because one of them is AFK, but if someone says, "Hey, I'm going AFK," and then Ponky goes out there on his mule to cover, and it spawns, and Ponky gets the point because he saw it spawn. Whoever calls it out is the one who's gonna get the point here.
And it's not going to be game breaking. Someone's not going to get a ton of points for it. It's just going to be a little.
Yeah, if it's 2 people kind of, trading it back and forth, this is going to be like a sort of I don't know, as per bait, like case by case basis, I guess, on it. But ideally, you're going to get 1 point for scouting. Maybe max 2 people can get points for scouting. Something like that.
Do you think we need any changes to the 50k per point for ground? Because with Sky, with Sky and Dynamics, we're only going to get able to get up to 9 points a week. But with this, we're going to go get way more possibly. You just want that person to just have way more points.
Well,
or anything, or I don't.
Well, I
don't
think
know if we want to change that value for that or not.
I think maybe let's see how it goes. Maybe we do need to change that value at some point.
Be all over the place.
Yes, they're much more divergent than they are now. That's for sure.
But I guess it is a good way still to reward the people that are able to camp constantly.
Yeah.
And as for the time investment, say if a Fafnir is going to be a 3 or 4 a.m. and only 1 or 2 people can actually make it to that, and he takes like 3 hours to pop.
Well,
is that 1 point? Or if we go to camp something at a decent time, but we don't, like, obviously the people who show up cannot kill it. Like, we just don't have the numbers to kill it. Are they going to get full points for the time?
You just want to leave one person to get time of death, and then possibly give them 1 point or something. I don't
Yeah,
know.
and I think the scout points and the time of death points is kind of the same thing.
Yeah, that's true.
Acquiring a time of death is worth a point, I think. We are only going to consider giving points for stuff that happens in our sort of active time, and I think that could expand from like noon to midnight Eastern. Anything that is inside that time is not going to be eligible for camp points, or outside of that time is not going to be eligible for camp points. But time of death points are worth any time of day, 24 hours a day.
Like, if we have the numbers, then I think you should be able to get camp points.
Exactly, if with the exception of we have numbers. So if people are camping at 1 a.m. on a Saturday into a Sunday night, that's eligible then. Yep, because we'll have enough to show up to kill, and it'll become eligible for camp points. If an officer is not there, you will have to submit a screenshot of everyone who was there, and we will determine whether or not that is a reasonable party. But chances are it is. You know, if you have it, yeah.
Behemoth is the only one that I'm thinking is a little bit weird because you could just dual box it.
Yeah, Behemoth and Adamantoise are both 2 or 3 players.
Yeah.
But
so do we want to do anything different for those, or are we just gonna allow that?
You just send us a screenshot because we need to put in attendance anyway, and we'll see the zone, and we'll just determine it. But don't submit a screenshot if you know you guys can't kill something. Don't submit a screenshot of a bard, a paladin, and a red mage at Fafnir. You're not going to get points for that. It's not going to happen. Okay. Any other comments, questions, please? Feel free. We've been here for 2 hours already.
If any party leaders see Selva Lot, a kindred or beastman seal, he gets an instant boot.
Okay.
Okay, alright, look, see, this thing about that,
No, that's a set rule now.
No, I'm just saying, like, it's a thing now. Come on, let it just happen. Let it be free.
Yes, let it just be free. No one lot, just let it be free.
Okay.
Let the lotting be free.
And are the points for doing ground stuff like scouting going to be effective immediately?
There will be a start date for ground. I will tell you what that is in a little bit. But you can start submitting your wish list to me for ground tonight. You can submit it whenever you want. I want to go through the summary really quick because there's a couple bits of homework for people here.
Homework.
Okay, so here's what we talked about tonight. Selecting a sponsor will be a democratic vote, and people will know what relic they are building when they're voting for someone. That person must have a certain amount of points and a certain amount of gil on hand to be determined by the leaders. Number 2, we will be hiding the wish list. The standings, however, will remain public. The bank will try to stock a minimum of 30 Dynamis currency and about 10 million gil, but we'll determine that later. We have determined that 1 point is worth 50k for purchasing items on the spot if you are present at an event. And it will come out of that event's point pool. Ground will be separate, and everything else will be in one. Rise of the Zillart, COP, and Treasures of Urgon H&Ms, we will get 1 point per hour for camping them if we camp them. It'll mostly apply to Rise of the Zillart. And then there are Scout and Time of Death points, which is worth an additional 1 point, which will also go on the ground points wish list. So the 2 things that you can do now are you can submit your ground wish list, and you can also send me your name in DM if you want to be considered to be a Dynamis sponsor. And we will decide from there who's up for vote. The vote will go up sometime, let's say, we'll do the vote on November 13th-ish, which is 2 weeks from today. So please submit your name before then, and please try to have your ground wish list submitted to me by about that time as well, because the official start for ground will be the week of November. Am I looking at the wrong month? The week of the 18th. So we will start tracking time of death starting that week. Hopefully they're in our time zone then. We won't know until we get there.
Ash, question. So
Yep.
just to be a little bit more clear, so we will be doing the job thing main.
Nope.
Okay, so we're not adding that to.
No, we're just doing the whole honor system thing. You guys can pass now, right? That's what we decided?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Just making sure.
Except for those specific items that we mentioned.
Yes, those specific items will be considered to have a job entry on them, with the exception of Riddle, which will be considered in order of priority, which will be Dark War, Thief, and then Beast and Sam will be considered last. Okay, so submit your ground wish list, submit your names for Dynamis current sponsorship if you want to, and ground starts the week of Monday, November 18. So put your riddles on your list and all that shit. Hopefully the game will be up next week, and we can do some events. There are not going to be points for this meeting. Sorry.
I'm trying to figure out if I want to make plans for Saturday or.
Yeah, hard to know. I mean, I'll let you guys know when I know. So
I already have them made, but it just depends on if I'll be staying out later or not.